have to help Charles finish his movie.
I got a chance, and I feel very fortunate I had this chance, to be that proverbial fly on the wall of JJ's creative process.
The movie was inspired by that time in my childhood, which was in fact inspired by the films that you made. And then making this movie was possible only because of the collaboration that I had with this man.
Be good for you to spend some time with kids who don't run around with cameras and monster makeup.
You should be like running over. You cannot wait to see the shot you're gonna get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot more speed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Here we go. Thanks, guys.
Well, when I was a kid, I made Super 8 movies as Steven made regular 8 movies. And I had an idea one day for a movie called Super 8. And before I even thought of anything beyond that, I was on the phone calling Steven and saying, would you ever want to do a movie called Super 8 that was about... And luckily, you said yes.
Yes.
And that was sort of the beginnings of it.
Then he walks over there, and we go, okay, look that way. There's something else.
We discussed what it could be and what the sort of genre would be, because it was really just about a group of characters that we started to fall in love with, the idea of this group of kids, but frankly, there wasn't really enough in my mind to bring people to the theater yet. It was sort of missing some kind of higher purpose in a way.
Guys, watch out!
I had another idea separately. It was sort of a monster movie notion, and I called Steve and I said, what if we combine these two ideas?
The idea that we had discussed was Hitchcockian Zapruder type 8mm film with something just in the corner of 4 or 5 of the 8mm frames that was going to unlock this entire mystery.
Come here, what are these things?
It wasn't an accident.
But we wanted a lot of people to see this movie, and so when JJ came up with the science fiction idea, it just felt right to me. Well, what happened was I had just miles of 8mm film. Some of them were personal family movies that I'd taken with my dad's, 3-turret Kodak 8mm movie camera. And other things were little films, little dramas and comedies that I had made from 12 years old on up, and they were in disrepair. And Kathy Kennedy and I were going through my boxes of my 8mm films, and Kathy was my assistant at the time, and she said, oh, we have to do something with these films. This is just terrible. You can't just leave these in a box sitting around somewhere. The rats will get them. And so she, I don't know how she did it. You can probably tell the story, but she found JJ and Matt Reeves.
Well, yeah, talking about rats, she called up Matt and got our names from this article that was in the Los Angeles Times because we were in a Super 8 film festival. And she called us and asked if we'd be interested in repairing Steven's movies that he made when he was our age.
How old were you at the time?
15, 16, which was insane. I mean, it made no sense. Frankly, it doesn't make sense today, but it made no sense. And we said, okay, sure, we'll repair Steven Spielberg's movie. What? And we did. We're there repairing these movies, and it said written and directed by Steve Spielberg. It was fantastic. We couldn't have been more excited. So we repaired these movies, and we never actually met then, but years later we did. But that was sort of my first brush with greatness with Steven.
Seymour.
And action!
Guys, this is gonna be great! Put the lights and camera on that end. We'll shoot this direction first. Joe, make sure the mic is plugged in and put the batteries in the camera before you do the makeup. Okay.
And cut.
The movie began as a late 70s, early 80s film about kids making movies. I mean, it was always, the first idea for me was Super 8 was the title of the movie, and it was about this group of kids. And there actually were, 8 kids in my head, and if you count the kid Donnie who works at the camera store and Charles' sister, there are 8.
Yeah.
And the idea was that it was about this group of kids.
Nobody gets that.
Oh,
hey, the Magnificent 7, there were 7 guys, you can count them. Super 8, there's 8 people if you can count them.
That's true.
Nobody's counting.
No one's counting. But the idea was always that. So for me, you could tell the story now, but there was a kind of specificity to the oddity of the kids in 1979 making films. Therefore, they were these sort of slight outcast, oddball kids.
As we were.
And I don't know why we came up with that idea.
Alice, Mrs. Hathaway really doesn't want her husband to keep investigating these
Yeah,
Sony
I know.
murders.
We
They're
read it.
really
We get
dangerous. God, I'm distracted. Martin, get in position. You need to reassure her. Wait, do you know what reassure her means?
Yeah?
There was a lot more craft involved in the 70s. You had to really cut things out and staple things together, and you had to build things. You had to dye things in your mom's washing machine. It was about craft. And, you know, it's very easy to take your phone out of your pocket and flip it open, make a little film between all your friends and just post it on YouTube. And that, by the way, that's great. You know, it's a great outlet for creativity. You had to really want to be a movie maker or want to emulate movies you were seeing in the 70s and 60s. And you actually had to be a good producer. You had to con your parents out of a camera. You had to go off and earn money by doing odd jobs, paper route, this sort of thing to get the processing and the film paid for. So there was so much effort in getting just the material to make a little 8mm movie in those days. There's a great deal of ambition and passion when you see the kids going to those lengths to tell their stories.
Production value! Gary, you put film in the camera, right?
I didn't put it in.
What? Put it in, Joe!
Put it
Get the mic
down.
ready, go! Costume,
Okay, I will.
Joe,
Martin, calm down.
I had friends when I was in elementary school who I would somehow convince to help me on the weekends when they could have been off doing other things and I'm sure having probably a better time. It was always about how do you get these people, your friends at the time, how do you convince them to care as much about what you're working on as you do? And it was about making them work with you, you know, not barking orders at them or, you know, they'd never work with you again. You have to find a whole new group of friends. So it was always about trying to convince them that this was worth their while. And, you know, when you're working with a crew of hundreds of people and you're doing the same thing when you're working with a cast, you know, you're trying to get them invested in the moment and convince them that this idea, this sequence, this scene is passionate and desperately worth doing.
Okay. Do both.
So I think that there's a relationship and energy expended that has not changed one iota.
Hi, Mr. Lamb.
That's good. That'd be good.
The great thing about making movies back in the 60s was that when I was like a little kid, you know, in like the late 50s, early 60s, was that when I made this one movie, I wanted to get adult-looking people in my movies because everybody was 13, 14 years old. And they all looked like they were 11 and 12. And there was this college guy I knew that would mow our lawn, and he was at ASU, and he looked like a movie star, and I wanted to get, he wouldn't do it. He wasn't an actor, didn't want to do the movie. But I knew there was a girl he liked in the neighborhood. And so I went to her, and I gave her the part first, and I told him, but I'd given her the part, and he committed to play the lead.
So it's exactly the same as doing movies now.
It's just like today.
It's literally exactly the same.
Well, you're the one who wanted the wife in the movie.
Not so you could fall in love with her.
What do you care what I think about Alice anyway?
Because I like her. That's why I asked her to do this thing in the first place, so I could get to know her, not you.
You like Alice Daynard?
You're such an idiot.
My recollection of making my first few movies at 12 and 13 years old, the level of anxiety and the amount of work and the amount of psychotherapy you have to do to everybody around you hasn't changed a bit. You know, I thought maybe that's just the way it was when you were a kid. I didn't realize it was going to be that and more when I grew up and somebody gave me a job. I'm paying more money. I didn't pay anybody back then. I'm paying people a lot of money now.
Hey, Mo, just make it loud. Rolling.
Hey, Mark.
So talk away. Talk to your friends.
It was really interesting to watch, you know, the story evolve based on JJ showing up on my Tintin set and saying, this doesn't work at all, it just doesn't work, it's not going to work, we got to think of something else. And how every single step of just creating the script was a very, for me, a very revealing process. He didn't go off and write this and come back and give me a draft and say, what do you think? I mean, he struggled through every decision, every choice.
So if that's 2, go back to 1, please. Our meetings on the Tintin set and off the Tintin set were not just about me complaining that the story wasn't working, and you know, it was a process that could not have happened without Stephen. That my sort of searching for ideas and Stephen's better ideas or his support of the ideas that I was insecure about was everything.
JJ worked this thing out as if he was a game board designer where everything had to make sense because you play it so many times. Watching him working on the story suddenly made me aware of why he's such a big success with all of his television work, which has to hang together because you get such fanship on TV. television audience looking for all the flaws and all the mistakes, and you have to be pretty foolproof on television to have a big, successful hit television series. He's had 4 of them.
How am I supposed to be a zombie?
Oh, pretty much just be a lifeless ghoul with no soul, dead eyes, scary. Did you ever have Miss Mullen?
For English?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like her, but hungry for human flesh. Like she wants to turn somebody into a zombie. Because that's kind of what zombies do.
Okay.
Oh my God, yeah, that's really good. Not bad.
Really?
Really.
The great thing about these kids is that they weren't like professional kids. They were kids who were suddenly in a movie. And so I tried to make the line between just being in the moment, being in the room, and being real, and then saying action. I didn't want them to suddenly get stiff, you know? And so kind of keeping the conversation going allowed them to feel like it was still, they were still able to, you know, have the conversation and be real. And it was, you know, really a testament to them that they were able to be so, you know, a group of, you know, buzzing, crazy, distracted kids, and actually then when we were actually filming, keep that energy and also get their lines out.
Yeah, good, good. If you can get that kind of inflection and just do it again quietly and sweetly, that would be great.